Hey everyone, and welcome. It is May 2019, and this is Brain Gainz, the show brought to you live from headquarters at Bodybuilding.com. My name is Tyler. It's my good friend Alec. How you doing, man?
Good, man. It's Friday. It's a great day.
It is, isn't it nice? Yeah. And we're at the end of May. It's almost summer. Feeling pretty good. So guys, don't forget, this is an open format show, so if you have any questions or comments about what we're doing today, please feel free to post those in chat. But if you don't get in there, make sure you shoot us an email, brain.gainz@bodybuilding.com. So today, welcome. This is Brain Gainz, the show where we talk about ingredients and supplements and nutrition and exercise and the science behind those things. So today we're talking about something that I think applies to quite a few people, especially this time of year. We're talking about fat burners. So if you guys have any questions about fat burners, ingredients, how they work, how to use them, please feel free to put those in chat. We're going to be going through and answering those as we go. So thanks so much for everyone for being here. Alec, tell me what you think about fat burners. Like, where are you at with those? Have you taken them before? How do you treat them?
Yeah, no, I mean, they have a place in a supplement regimen depending upon what your goals are, right? In this case, it would be to burn a little extra. I would say, the big kicker with these, just to kind of get out in front with it, is that taking a fat burner will not necessarily do everything for you without supplementing it also with a solid diet.
Right.
By that I mean like caloric deficit and just moving around. So taking a supplement like a fat burner and just sitting down, I mean, yeah, you're going to sit there and just sweat, probably feel uncomfortable, clammy hands, but that alone will not do the trick for you. Yeah,
it's definitely something that people struggle with sometimes. A lot of people are looking for a pill that you can just take and then fat magically disappears. And we always like to reiterate the fact that that's not how these work. That's not how the ingredients are supposed to work. That's not how they're tested. So please don't expect that going into that or going into this. And we're going to probably reiterate that a dozen times as we go through, but just understand that fat burners are something that you have as a supplement to an already caloric deficit in your diet, exercising, working hard, and making sure your body is already working in a state that is heading towards fat burning as well. So let's talk about some of the main ingredients that we have in fat burners. Number one is definitely the biggest and most important, and that is stimulants. So what is a stimulant? A stimulant is an ingredient that either increases your energy, increases your heart rate. It might up your blood pressure just a little bit because of the chemistry of how it works. We are talking about two of them in particular today, but there are obviously a bunch more, and we could talk for days about the different types of stimulants and how they work. But number one is definitely caffeine. So caffeine we see is actually the number one consumed supplement / drug / ingredient in the entire world, whether it's through teas or whether it's through coffees or whether it's through pre-workouts and fat burners. Everyone's drinking caffeine. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it is. For starters, I guess the best way is to define it as an adenosine receptor antagonist. What does that mean? So adenosine receptors are found throughout your body, throughout your brain. And these are the receptors that actually make you feel more calm and more sleepy. And since caffeine is an antagonist to those things, it's actually blocking them from being activated so you feel more energetic. Caffeine also acts as a cardiovascular stimulant, and that means you'll feel it in your heart rate. Your heart rate will increase, your blood vessels will constrict just a little bit, and that's why you start feeling that sense of arousal as you're consuming caffeine, and it is dose dependent as well. So when you're taking caffeine, how much do you like to take? What do you do for timing wise? Do you take it in the morning, afternoon, evening? Tell me about caffeine in your life.
I mean, it depends on what the actual purpose of it is. I mean, if I'm just beginning of the day, I'm an early morning lifter, so I'm popping my pre-workout probably around 5 in the morning.
Sure.
But if we're talking just caffeine in general, probably throughout the workday, I know our section of the office, we've got just a plethora of caffeinated BCAAs and everything around us.
We have many.
So I would probably say usually about 200 mgs at a time besides a pre.
Sure.
So that would be the equivalent to a couple cups of coffee.
Now, we work in compliance, and so it's our job to make sure that people aren't consuming products that are unsafe or dangerous for them. Caffeine comes up all the time as something that could potentially be dangerous because it is absolutely possible to take too much and you can be overstimulated. Where's that line?
So the FDA recommends 400 milligrams of it a day. Some of us exceed that. There's no surprise there. However, for the average individual, 400 milligrams a day is more than enough.
Right, so caffeine is an ingredient that your body can become sensitized to. That means that if you take a little bit, your body can actually respond to it by upping the amount of receptors that it has, so that if caffeine blocks we'll say for ease of argument, say caffeine blocks 5 receptors, then your body makes more, so now there's 8 receptors in order to, for signals to be transduced, and so you need to take more caffeine later in order to get those signals completely blocked. And so more and more caffeine is required in order to get the same feeling. We've heard of this before in some other types of drugs. So that is why you see some people say like, oh, 400 milligrams. Like for me, 400 milligrams would be a ton of caffeine. But for someone who takes a lot of caffeine every day, 400 might not be so much. So having a hard break on how much you should or shouldn't have is really difficult. It's really dependent on how much you normally take, what you're comfortable with, but we always recommend that you start low. So a lot of fat burners come in around 150 milligrams to 200 milligrams at a time, and starting with a single dose is a really good way to go. But maybe over time you feel like that's not doing it for you, you're not feeling the energy that you want to be feeling with caffeine, and so you can go up from there.
And that's a good point to talk about, just with kind of the compounding effects of the amount of products a lot of people will consume.
Yes.
So if you're a brand loyalist, you're going to take a pre-workout from a brand, you're going to take a fat burner potentially from the brand. So something to truly consider is, what is that total caffeine
Right.
At the end of the day? Because there are some people that'll take a burner before they work out, and then they'll also take a pre, and it's just, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a good time, but that some people that just might be too much.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not even considering caffeine you might take later in the day after your workout is done, whether it's through coffee or through energy drinks or whatever. So yeah, understanding your total daily intake is very, very important. Now, we're talking about caffeine in the kind of the context of fat burners. We wanted to let you know that caffeine in particular is not going to be the ingredient that you take that is just going to melt fat away. So we like to say caffeine is there to give you energy to do the activities that you want to do in order to burn the calories that are going to help you burn fat. So you want to feel more energetic, and that's going to give you the motivation to go to the gym and do a couple of extra reps or run that extra mile on the treadmill, and hopefully that will put you in a mind state to where you're able to carry out the activities that are going to help you get there. So,
and with that, let's see here. We've got a couple questions in chat already. Fahad from YouTube, if you had to pick one fat burning ingredient, which would it be at what dose? So me personally, I think caffeine is king when it comes to this, just because it's forcing people to kind of move, and that's the biggest deal with this, is just activity. A lot of people aren't burning enough throughout the day. So if that means you're extra stimulated to go burn an extra 500 calories throughout the day, and you happen to be in a caloric deficit, that's outstanding.
yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's the long-term kind of gains with that. In this case, long-term kind of losses with as much body fat you want to lose.
I agree completely. We have a couple of extra questions here as well. Should I take a fat burner after a meal, asks Leono. You're welcome to. I don't believe there's anything that states whether or not you can take it before or after. Most of those ingredients are working on non-digestive methods. There are a couple of ingredients that work by blocking carbs. We've seen those before, or some that mediate insulin response, which is one of those we're going to talk about a little bit later. But generally, we see if you're taking things like stimulants, you might feel them a little bit more. You might feel the kick of them a little more if you're going off of an empty stomach. But ideally, you're still absorbing the same amount of ingredients, whether you're taking them with, before, or after a meal. Shouldn't make too much of a difference.
Regulatory-wise, there's a couple that they do recommend you take with food though.
Oh.
So like green tea in general. So there have been cases where green tea, if you take on an empty stomach, that you might get a little ouched. But I know in Europe with, I want to say Italy and France, they recommend to take with the meal. So US, we try to treat it the same way. If a label comes across me, I usually try to recommend to take with the meal if they plan on onboarding it internationally as well.
Yeah, Alec is absolutely the expert when it comes to European rules and regulations, that kind of stuff over me. So yeah, definitely listen to him there. Dimitri's also has a really good question. Are there any effects to the body after you stop taking these products? So does your metabolism drop lower than you had before when you started them? Generally, no. Now, I talked about sensitization with caffeine before, and one of the things that we see when people go cold turkey after taking a lot of caffeine is you may be experiencing headaches. You may experience like some sort of drop-off effect from taking too much caffeine, and so that's something absolutely to be aware of. I know, like if I'm taking pre-workout all throughout the week and I do that multiple weeks in a row, and then I stop working out, or I go no caffeine over the weekend, I can definitely feel like I'm slumping a little bit. But when it comes to like your metabolism and how much energy you're burning throughout the day, we have nothing to say that stopping taking a fat burner is going to affect that in a negative way. So best of luck there.
And now we're going to segue into another stimulant that our buddy Tyler here
My favorite.
doesn't really do well with in his stomach, but It's an important one out there.
Yeah, so yohimbe or yohimbine or Rauwolfia vomitoria is where it is extracted from. This is an ingredient we see in a lot of fat burners, and it works in a very different way from caffeine. So this is actually an alpha-2 adrenoreceptor antagonist. So that's a lot of bio words, but basically your alpha-2 receptors within your body are there to work as a negative feedback loop to the neurotransmitters that you have, like epinephrine and norepinephrine. And so norepinephrine in particular, when you are up and working and using energy, your body produces this product. And then when you have enough of it in your body, norepinephrine loops back around, it activates alpha-2, and alpha-2 then down-regulates the continued production of norepinephrine, so that keeps it from getting out of control. So what yohimbe does is it gets in the way, it gets right in the middle of that process and makes it so that when your body would normally start to wind down a little bit, it actually keeps it winding up. And so you may feel a lot more energy. This is one that I associate with a lot more sweating. A lot of people have felt that kind of burn a little bit. You get the sweats kind of in the ribs area, maybe on the back. I know we've still felt that before, but we see this in a lot of fat burners because it works very well to make people feel like they have a ton of energy. So that's good. The other side of yohimbe, unfortunately, is that it doesn't agree with everyone's stomach, mine included. So when you are trying a product that has yohimbe in it for the first time, I highly recommend that you try it in a lower dose and then maybe build your way up to a full dose after that and see if it works out for you. It doesn't work out for everybody. So,
but really though, even I handle it exceptionally. But a couple years back, I misread a serving size, and I accidentally took a double the serving.
Oops.
Which it's a weird feeling, but I don't recommend necessarily doing that. However, it is really great if you're planning on doing taking a burner and you just want to go sweat it out, go on a run, go just do cardio, do anything involving just high intensity. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, and these are the kind of things where if you feel like you've taken too much too, you can go to the gym and you can start working, and these will burn off quickly.
Yes.
They are metabolized fairly quickly by your body. You're gonna burn through them, and especially if you are exercising and your metabolic rate is high, you're gonna burn through them a little bit quicker that way. So a couple more questions before we move forward. Let's see. Young Fresh from YouTube. Hey, I'm bad at taking pills. Do they have liquid fat burners? I don't know if they have like ready to drink products, but they absolutely have powders that you can mix in with water and you can drink them that way.
So there are a lot of like liquid L-carnitines, but we'll get to that. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the best bet with it. If you prefer it, carnitine, we'll get into kind of the better purpose of it. I think it kind of has an association with fat burning out there, which is how it's marketed, but in all reality, it's got a much better purpose.
Yeah, we'll talk about carnitine in a little bit, and I think that's the only ingredient I know of that actually comes in liquid form, but everything else is powder, and then you mix it in, or it's in a pill form. This is a question that just popped up, and I really wanted to address it because it's important. Are there any fancy names for caffeine, just so we know we're not unknowingly taking too much? I think that's a really good important question because we see some brands mark their products with caffeine, and some other brands want to be a little bit more literal with their chemical naming, and so caffeine is part of the xanthine family, and it has 3 methyl groups on it, so it is naturally known as trimethylxanthine with an X. I wish we could put it up on the board, but I don't think we can make a overlay that quickly. But trimethylxanthine is what you're looking for. There are a couple of other dimethylxanthines like theobromine and theophylline that come from cocoa, that come from teas, and they are also stimulants. So be on the lookout for those. So theobromine, theophylline, or other names for those would be either 1,3 or 1,5 dimethylxanthine. But then caffeine is trimethylxanthine. So be on the look for that. Good question. We don't want people going overboard when it comes to caffeine or with yohimbe. Way to go on that one. Yeah. Let's see. Other questions before we move into kind of the next section. What type of person needs to use fat burners? I think there are 0 people who need to use fat burners. They are definitely something that you are making a choice about. We're never going to push them on anyone because they are a higher stim category, which is not for everybody. But if you feel like you are in a position where you can handle a little bit extra stim, trying to burn a little bit extra body fat as a part of a balanced diet and a good exercise, then they're for you. And
again, to reiterate that what we're talking about here, there's supplements, right? So we're going to still hammer home that you're supplementing your diet in your life on top of that. So you don't need to take it, but if say you prefer just to have a little energy boost, fat burners are great for that. Just like instead of pucking down some coffee or another caffeinated beverage, you can just pop a product like that. But you don't need it. It's just it's out there. It's an option for people that choose to kind of go that way.
Perfect. I saw 2 questions that are kind of the same question but different. Do caffeine or do yohimbe cause water retention? Actually, just the opposite. We see when people are taking fat burners, when people are taking caffeine, when people are taking yohimbe, generally you tend to urinate a lot more than you would otherwise. So you're actually losing a little bit more water. That's why we always suggest you stay well hydrated when you're taking products with stimulants in them. So be aware of that. Let's see, Akil from YouTube, does creatine monohydrate burn fat? We have talked about creatine extensively on the show, and we'll probably talk about it extensively on future episodes, but creatine does not work in the fat-burning family. It's not a stimulant. It doesn't work that way. It is an energy source for your muscles when you're doing high-intensity exercise. The argument could be made that it helps you burn fat by giving you the energy to do 1 or 2 extra reps in the gym, per exercise to increase your intensity, to
your workload,
to increase the amount of calories that you're burning, thus, changing your overall caloric balance.
It's a reach. It's
a very indirect connection there. So I would not call it a fat burner. No. I would call it a workout supplement. So. All right, okay, let's move on. We got a new category here. So now that we're done with stimulants, we're going to talk about a category that is different. Some people tend to associate it kind of the same way, but it is different, and these are thermogenic. So these are ingredients that we have seen actually have an effect on the heat generation of your body. So thermogenic, that's heat generation right there. And so there were 3 ingredients that we want to talk about in particular. So number 1 is an ingredient that we have seen more and more of over the past 2 years. A little bit newer, it's paradoxine, or another name for it is Aphramama melagueta, which is the botanical.
Or grains of paradise.
Or grains of paradise. I actually saw that being used in a beer once. If you can name the beer, I would really appreciate that. That'd be really cool. But paradoxine is an ingredient that comes from a botanical that actually activates brown adipose tissue. So a lot of people don't know that fat comes in 2 types. We have white adipose tissue and we have brown adipose tissue. White adipose tissue is the one that we really associate with fat. That is the one that you see being stored all around your body. That is energy stores, and that is what people, that's the unsightly stuff. Brown adipose tissue comes in much smaller patches throughout your body. It is not unsightly. It does not come in big bulk stores. No. And actually, it is brown adipose tissue is highly associated with metabolic activation and heat generation and that sort of thing. So when paradoxine goes in and activates that brown adipose tissue, you're going to feel the heat. We around the office are very, aware of the heat that it makes you feel. We talked about sweating with yohimbe earlier. There's another ingredient that would absolutely put that up there for you. But paradoxine, we're going to talk about synephrine as well, and capsaicinoids. These are not associated with increases to heart rate or blood pressure, so you don't have to worry about any of that kind of contraindications.
That's why these are really key ingredients that are safe. You have a pretty high stim intake anyway. Generally speaking, you're going to see a lot of fat burners that have like a combination of all the above, but there are some that are just straight fill ingredients of grains of paradise that, it's an underrated sweat producer.
I don't think it's underrated. I just think it's new, right? So
it's novel.
There's some new studies that have come out over the last year. People are investigating this ingredient. We are learning that it is associated with good results. Right around the 40 milligrams of paradoxine seems to be a really gold spot. And we've seen a couple of products that have it in there on site. So if you want to look on Bodybuilding.com, we got it. So yeah, be aware. That's a cool ingredient, and we're excited to see where it goes. All right, next. This is an ingredient that I think is a little bit more controversial because of where it sits on a couple of particular lists, and I think you can speak to that a little bit more. Synephrine. Tell me what you know.
Synephrine, so from a compliance perspective, it is perfectly fine in the eyes of the FDA. Its source is bitter orange, which it's just a fun little orange across the world. But yeah, it's a like Tyler brought up, it's a thermogenic ingredient, but in the eyes of some regulatory bodies, in the sense of like say WADA, USADA, so from an athlete perspective, it's not allowed.
WADA and USADA, hold on. Not everyone knows what those are.
So USADA is the United States Anti-Doping Agency, and then WADA is the world equivalent of that, so usually impacts the Olympics. But as well as the NFL, which kind of plays more to USADA, a lot of other major league sports go towards that as well. But in their eyes, it's a no-no. But in the amount of kind of, you want to say, the path it took to getting into food supply and getting into dietary supplements, the FDA is completely good with it. So in the United States, it's fine. But when it comes down to like say the European Union, it needs to be bitter peel extract. Okay. So not just like synephrine itself. There was an issue with synthetic forms of this the last couple of years, but the industry itself has done a pretty good job in terms of kind of weeding that out.
So we don't believe this ingredient is dangerous at all. We've seen it in the focus of a couple of lists that are important to athletes, right? So WADA and USADA. I know that the form of the ingredient on those lists is called methylsynephrine. You may have seen octopamine before. That's another name for methylsynephrine. We're not 100% sure why it's on this list. This is not an ingredient that I believe is going to make you run faster on the field or make you lift heavier. This is another brown adipose tissue focused ingredient, and maybe there's something in there that it, comes to energy store mobilization or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but if you are an athlete, if you're playing college sports, professional sports, I may stay away from synephrine just because there's a possibility that one may be mistaken for the other, and we don't want you to get in trouble for something that probably won't help your sport goals in any way. But if you are looking for an ingredient that will help you with your fat burning, that will help you with your weight loss goals as a part of a balanced nutrition and exercise plan, synephrine may be a really good choice for you because, again, there's a lot of good studies that have been done by the ingredient suppliers that provide this ingredient. That it helps with lean body mass, it helps with losing fat, but it does so without increasing heart rate, it does so without increasing blood pressure, which is really important for the crowd of people, like Alec mentioned, who are already taking a bunch of stimulants.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the chemical structure of it, is that similar to, it wasn't the goal of synephrine like that got really big due to, was it similar to like ephedra or ephedrine?
It is close to ephedra, but it is different, and it is because of the shape. It is not as effective at what ephedra did. I see a question about ephedrine on here. What is my opinion on it? My opinion is that it is illegal, and we are not going to use it. But with synephrine, it is close to that structure, so it works in a similar way, but not to such a degree that it's going to be as dangerous or supplying that same level of as ephedra. So anyway, definitely something to look out for. And then finally, capsaicinoids. This is probably the one out of this list of thermogenics that we see the most. Brown pepper extract. I think Capsamax is the ingredient that we see all the time. And this is just brown peppers or red peppers or peppers in general that are supplying the ingredient that you feel in your mouth is really hot. I know Alec loves the hot sauces and watching, what's the show?
It's a Hot Ones on
Hot
First
Ones
We
on
Feast.
YouTube, that's right. But this is the one that you feel is hot, and it is legitimately increasing temperatures inside your body in response to that. So this one will definitely help you get them sweats going as well. So.
And there was a question in chat earlier about whole food sources that may help with fat burning. Tyler touched up on that. Anything with a pepper is a really good idea. If you like the hot, add jalapenos, bell peppers, habaneros, hot sauce in general. That'll naturally increase your body's thermogenic. So.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of other macro choices you could take as well, right? So ISSN came out with a lot of information over the past couple of years about protein intake, and they've made some really great correlations between greatly increasing the amount of protein you're intaking and lean body mass improvements and fat loss. So if you are doing your macro calculations, it has been inferred that increasing the amount of protein that you're taking or increasing the proportion of your calories that come from protein may be beneficial. Even as high as 3 grams per pound of body weight, just an enormous amount. I probably wouldn't recommend that much, but
let's try to get the meat sweats.
Just increasing the amount of protein relative to the other 2 macronutrients may help with weight loss. And then if you are going to consume carbs, leaning more towards the low glycemic index carbs versus the high glycemic, right, the more complex carbs is better as well. Okay, so we're moving. Let's get a couple more questions here. We've been talking a lot. Could you build a tolerance to fat burners, FT Foxy? Yes, actually, we talked a little bit earlier about caffeine. And so caffeine, you can experience sensitization, which means that after a while you would need to take more and more in order to feel the same effect. I don't believe that to be true for some of these ingredients, like the thermogenics and some of the others that we're going to talk about here in a moment. But for the stimulants, absolutely you can. Your body is made to adjust to stimulants like that.
And Joey on YouTube, are there any fat burners that we would recommend? So generally speaking, we try to avoid just kind of recommending individual products on here. But what we are trying to do is kind of give you the education on these particular ingredients and to read a label, and if you see these ingredients in there at a solid dose. And if you happen to come across a product that you're curious about, please email us at brain.gainz@bodybuilding.com. We're more than happy to kind of give you the extra little info on it. There's only so much information on our product page on the site, so if we can kind of help you out with that, don't be afraid to ask, as well as our customer service team. They're outstanding.
That's right.
But yeah, with that, caffeine's king. Paradoxine is great as well. I know that there's another question asked that they're sensitive to caffeine, what they should do.
I was just going to do that.
Talk like this thermogenic category that we're discussing right now. Look for something with that. If there's some fat burners have like a lower caffeine dose. If they're truly dependent upon caffeine as their primary ingredient, avoid that. But paradoxine, synephrine, even like red pepper extract, there's there's a lot of them that help out from that perspective.
There you go. Perfect. Your thoughts, just for fun, your thoughts on pre-workout with thermogenic mix. Now, we've seen this a few times, right? They'll add like burn or shred or something to the name, and generally you'll see some of these ingredients mixed with the caffeine and beta-alanine and citrulline of a pre-workout. Is that okay? Sure. I don't think there's any contraindication of having those types of ingredients together. I don't think there would be anything that would decrease their effectiveness. Whatever's helping you work out a little bit harder, a little bit longer, a little bit stronger is going to be beneficial for you. Again, the thing we would recommend against is taking too much caffeine, getting stimulated too much. That's not necessarily very good for you. And then just be aware of what ingredients you are okay with consuming. I mentioned that yohimbe sometimes upsets my stomach. It's possible that it could upset yours, and some of the other ingredients don't always agree. So whenever it comes to trying out a new product or a new ingredient, make sure you test it out first and then jump into full. But the question is, can I take them at the same time? Sure, you can, no problem. I don't see any issue there.
And then we're going to hop into a third category that is kind of we call it the other category. They're not other. They're not a stimulant. They're not a thermogenic. They're either marketed towards fat burning, or maybe they might not be as marketed enough towards that.
Yeah, so one that we wanted to address up front pretty quickly is carnitine, or L-carnitine. We mentioned it earlier as coming in liquid form. We see it in pills. We see it in other products. Carnitine is associated with fat-burning products pretty strongly and has been for a very long time. And the reason for that is that carnitine is a protein that's in every one of your mitochondrial cells, right, the powerhouse of the cell. And its job is to help shuttle fat molecules from outside the mitochondria into the mitochondria, right? Because fat is fatty acids are really big molecules, and they don't just passively move across membranes.
No.
They need to be taken across, and that process is really slow, and it works really great with carnitine. And so the theory is, if I take carnitine, then more fat is going to be shuttled into my cells, and everything's going to work better. Unfortunately, your body is, to put it simply, if your body is a cup of water, that glass is already very close to full. Your body's really good at making enough carnitine in order to shuttle all the fat that it needs at any given time. And so supplementing with it doesn't necessarily make you better at it.
No.
I've seen, one of my first jobs when I got here at Bodybuilding.com was to go through and make sure that some of the claims that we were making on products were substantiated according to clinical evidence. And carnitine was one that I spent a long time on, because there's a lot of evidence, but there's a lot of evidence on both sides. We've seen some studies take carnitine and show that consuming it increases the amount of carnitine in your blood. We've shown that some people have experienced increased loss of fat over a course of time, but then we've also seen a ton of studies to the opposite, right? People will take carnitine for a long period of time compared to people who are not, and then we've seen no difference. And so because there's this huge disparity and this massive amount of conflicting data, I never like to jump in and say this is a product that absolutely works. It may work for some, it may absolutely not work for others. And so when it comes to carnitine, I don't like to say lean on this ingredient. Now, what there has been some really good evidence on is carnitine's ability to help with delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, we've talked about this before in our recovery episodes. Delayed onset muscle soreness is kind of the inflammatory response to exercise and the micro tears that you experience from exercise. And for some reason, and I actually don't know the full mechanism here, but we have really good evidence to suggest that carnitine helps decrease the amount of delayed onset muscle soreness that you feel. And I guess if you wanted to be super indirect, again, with your confirmation that this is a fat-burning ingredient, kind of like creatine we talked about, but if you have decreased amount of delayed onset muscle soreness, you may get back into the gym a little bit faster. You may work harder on your second workout after you got all sore, thus burning a little bit more calories, thus experiencing a little bit more fat loss over a period of many, many weeks. So I guess the argument could be made that it helps, but I don't like to call this a fat-burning ingredient. So anyway, that's carnitine. If you have questions about it, again, feel free to post those in chat. Feel free to email us, brain.gainz@bodybuilding.com. I know it's super confusing, and I know there's marketing all over the place for this ingredient, but that's what I know about it after the studying that I've done. So,
and this is a really nice segue question. Mary from YouTube, how do you feel about stacking L-carnitine and chromium picolinate? How often would you recommend taking it? Well, we're going to talk about chromium right now.
The next ingredient we had on our other list here is one, it goes by the name Cro Max. That's the patented name right now, chromium picolinate. But it is a form of chromium that is absorbed very, very well, and actually has some pretty good evidence behind the fact that it can support insulin function, and it actually has been associated with improved body comp as well. So it's a promising ingredient. It's a little bit newer to the weight loss category, the body composition category. I don't know about its status in the EU, if there's any issue.
Oh no, that was actually great. So the thing with the EU when it comes to like claims, there are approved claims for most of the approved, actually, the only way you can make a claim on a product really is if it's approved or not by their regulatory body.
Okay.
Chromium is one of those, so it helps with blood sugar metabolism, is what it is. Regular
All right,
blood
metabolism.
Sugar. Yep.
There you go. Okay, so if you wanted to try it out, see how it works for you, and if you feel like it's working for you, great. I'm not going to say don't try this. You know, if you're going to be decreasing your delayed onset muscle soreness and your insulin response is going to be supported, that's a win. Is it going to help shred fat off your body? I probably wouldn't say so, but I'm always up for people trying things, and if it works, that's great. Another ingredient we want to talk about is CLA, or conjugated lanolinic acid. We see this all the time when it comes to lean body support. CLA is an ingredient that we like to serve at about 2,500 milligrams to 3,000 milligrams, so 2.5 grams to 3 grams a day. And the claim that I like for CLA is that it helps support lean body mass maintenance while you're losing weight.
Yes.
So when you're losing weight, your body's actually a little bit non-discriminate about what type of weight it loses. It's really easy to lose muscle while you are losing weight. It's just how your body gets rid of excess energy like that. But there have been some studies on CLA, especially in higher doses, even up to 6 grams a day, that have shown that if you're consuming this ingredient, it actually helps maintain that lean body mass while you're losing weight. But this is not an ingredient, again, that you're going to consume and all of a sudden your belly fat's going to go away. That's not how it works.
And then one we touched on earlier today, green tea, or the active ingredient, Tyler.
EGCGs are
You can do it.
epigallocatechin gallate. I think
go.
that's right. Yeah, epigallocatechin gallate. Yeah. Anyway, this is a phytochemical that's found within green tea, and it has some pretty great properties when metabolism for helping. Actually, I shouldn't say that, but metabolism or being an antioxidant, right? So oxidative stress is something that everyone experiences, whether it's through exercise or stress or what have you. And having a solid antioxidant and a metabolism support ingredient like EGCG, super duper important. So.
But yeah, and with that, again, the really big thing to hit home is that they can work. You just have to have your body in the right kind of framework going into it. So there's a question here about, can you do fat burners work if you're on a caloric surplus? I mean, say if you're in a surplus, but then you're working, I don't know, it's hard to say. I would say it's much less likely for that to be the case. Caloric deficits are king when it comes to aiding in this situation, because you're going to get you're spending more energy. That's just how it is. So like, if your goal is to get as poor as possible with this, you're spending more money this way. That's how it's doing it. So, and then are they health friendly? Yes, they are. Again, if something is in the food supply like this, I know that if we sell it, it's more than likely that it's very, very, very safe to take with that. Having said that, people ranging from, we're all different, how we're made up. You may react to something differently, but that's why you let the proper people know that you have an adverse event. But with this, yeah, I would say there's a lot of really interesting information when it comes down to fat burners. But if you have any other questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. It's kind of serendipitous. Today, we're actually filming our first episode of a podcast we're going to be doing for Bodybuilding.com. And we'd like to kind of do a deal where if there's questions we didn't get to, kind of bring them up on there. So
that's right.
So don't be afraid to shoot some questions at us.
That's right. Yeah, keep the questions rolling in. We have a ton about these, and that obviously makes sense because these can be kind of confusing ingredients with lots of different marketing around them, so it can be tough to find the right answer. But like Alex said, please feel free to shoot us a message at brain.gainz@bodybuilding.com if you feel like you really want your question answered directly. We monitor that email as often as we can. And then also, like you mentioned, we're doing a podcast starting soon, the Brain Gainz podcast. I was about to say Brain.Gainz podcast. The Brain Gainz podcast, we're recording our first episode today. That'll be up soon on podcast services everywhere. But one of our goals with that is to go in even deeper into actual research studies when it comes to these ingredients. So we're going to get super boring and nerdy when it comes to things like how Yohimbe works and what the deal is with Carnitine and such. But then another thing that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to answer more questions directly that we're getting not only from these live casts, but also from the community posts that we're putting on YouTube as well. So feel free to be super vocal about questions that you have. We're trying to answer as many of them as possible with the resources that we have, so keep them coming. But before we wrap up today, I just wanted to go over a couple of new things that we have coming to the website. So new products, we have the Rival Way warm-ups. We have Dymatize ISO 100 Hydrolyzed Clear Powder, and then we have Nutrex Niox Black, and then we have a ton of new products from Now Keto. So Now Keto is now on website. MCT Oil Powder, Keto Collagen, Keto Edge, Keto Balance, and Keto Electrolytes. which is going to be really
All
cool.
the keto.
Yeah. We have a couple new flavors of the products as well. The EVL Engine Shred is now a neon blueberry thanks to Steve Aoki's. That one's pretty cool. I tried that one. It tastes amazing. The Pre-Gym is now available in tangerine. Muscle Tech Phase 8 is now in milk chocolate and vanilla. NutriBio has a Reload Recovery Matrix in grape berry crush. That's one flavor. And the NutriBio Pre also has the grape berry crush as well. Finally, we have a couple new deals on site. If you want to hop in right now, we have up to 25% off protein, pre's, and posts. Signature brand, Bodybuilding.com signature brand is 25% off with a free shaker and up to 30% off on accessories. So anyway, guys, that's all we got for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Brain Gainz. And until then, keep on lifting.
Signature Pre-Workout is the result of nearly 20 years of gathering suggestions and feedback from you, the lifters and athletes out there living the life. And we put everything we learn into our Signature Pre-Workout. Signature Pre-Workout was designed to nail the sweet spot that too many miss. Take it before you train, and you'll increase endurance, mental focus, muscle pump, and just have better workouts. A great pre at a great price. That's our promise. This is our signature.